I am Nahid Kabbani, and this is the Lighthouse for today's viewers. Welcome to our show. On behalf of my guests, I welcome you and wish you happy holidays and happy New Year. Today, we'll have year-end review to look back a little bit about what happened last year and learn of what we've done and learn how we can solve or continue doing coming year. So let's introduce our guests first and continue talking. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Fatma Bakhit from Al-Intishar Al-Arabi newspaper, and I'm the president of AABG, Arab American Press Guild.
Great. Okay. My name is Julian Doe. I'm the co-director of New America Media. It's an association of ethnic media nationwide, and we also produce a wire service that we also call New America Media Wire Service. And as usual, it's always a pleasure to be here with the Light Show.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nahid. My name is Hasina Leelaratne. I'm editor of Sri Lanka Express. We've been publishing for the Sri Lankan community in the United States since 1981.
So, welcome again to our show, and we'll let Mr. Julian Doe host the show.
Thank you. Well, welcome Fatma and Hasina. It's the end of the year. It's Christmas times, but it's also at a time that we use opportunities to reflect on what the year has been, what been some of the major stories nationwide, as well as some of the important stories that affect the different ethnic communities. And so if I could ask Hasina to start, what's been your analysis of what were some of these major stories, you think?
I think the biggest story this year would be the elections, no doubt, and because of its impact on all of the ethnic communities. The Democrats getting to power is a major shift, and because it is going to impact foreign policy, local issues as well. So I would think that the elections is the biggest story for all communities as much as for the population at large.
What about you, Fatma?
Actually, we have too many different stories for the 2006. As an Arab, first, the major one, it was for us the war in Lebanon in July. It's affect the whole community, by the way. It's affect us personally. When Israel hit and attacked Lebanon, we got so suffered to see all these children get died, civilian people in Iraq, and that war, it wasn't there. There is no reason for that war, right. And that was a major top story for the Arab community.
Although it's happened abroad, but it affects the communities here.
Of course, it's affect because each family, Lebanese, Palestinian, Arab, it has a family, a relative in Lebanon.
Right.
And also, it's continuing until now because
but Lebanon is such a small country. What is the connection between Lebanon, the country, and the Arab communities here?
Actually, we don't see it as a small country. We see it as an Arab country. Right. As Lebanon, it's part of the whole Middle East and Arab country. And we didn't see it as a big or small. We see that one of our Arab country has been attacked from Israel.
I
You know,
see.
that's how we see it.
In that context.
In contact without reason, you know. And also still people get suffering until now. It's no work in Lebanon because people going out to the street for a big strike to, you know, to what they call it, to impeach the government after the attack, Israel attacked. It was a big story, one of the biggest story, and the other story that for Palestinian, Palestinian we have the election. As you know that.
You mean the November elections?
No, not November
Okay.
election. Palestinian election.
I see.
Palestinian got elect Hamas.
Right.
And after that was the first Democrat election in the whole Arab country.
Right.
You know, and when they got elect Hamas, the whole world got messed up. They doesn't want Hamas to be in the election. Affect us and affect us here as an Arab and affect us a Palestinian there because there is no food, no water, no life over there. And in the same time, we see Israel every single day killing small kids. You know, the major story we publish it in our newspaper and the TVs and all the Arab channel that over here American and any other people they cannot see it. That when we wrote that in our newspaper, limited people have to see it. It's not the whole American to see the truth and what's the truth inside Palestine or Lebanon, and also coming up to the Iraq too. That's the major thing that
Because
the media, it's not covering the right and the whole truth story from background, which is that affects us.
Yeah, we can come back to that issue later when we talk about the media reform issue. So
The third major thing, Iraq. Iraqi now, the troops in Iraq, we need the troops back. How many civilian has been killed every single day in Iraq,
right.
from American and also the Arab,
Right.
Iraqi, as itself.
It's been estimated probably about nearly 600,000 Iraqi casualties has incurred since the war began back in
1,000?
No, nearly 600,000.
600.
This is what, as was, you know, I heard last week an interview in Al Jazeera, actually, they said over a million. Over a million.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
because if we see every single day 100 people got every single day, you know, it's more than 650,000 Iraqi has been killed in Iraq.
And it's about 3,000 Americans,
Yeah.
soldiers.
Yes.
I don't think so.
Over.
It's over.
Over.
Also, it's same. I will give
How
you
many
the
wounded
website
also?
and
Well,
everything.
that's just the mortality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The injured list is
Yeah.
a lot higher.
Yeah, it's getting higher and higher.
Right.
That's the third top stories, and also the Arab American concern about the immigration issue, and also the election.
The American elections
Yeah.
here.
American
November.
election, it
In
was in
November,
November
right.
back, that they were so happy that the Democrat did get elected and
To
they
control,
won
right.
the election because of the, the government Bush administration policy for the Middle East
Right,
and all
right.
this stuff.
The
We
community
used
hope
to
that,
need-
that would be also a change in the foreign policy.
I
toward
believe,
Middle
I'm not
East.
sure if it's going to be changed or not.
But at least there's
But it's going to be a little bit different, and also we hope we don't see as much Arab vote before as this year. The Arab they went and they elect better than any other election before, and also we hope all the Arab they will go to elect for the presidency also. To keep
vote
it as,
for.
to vote for the Democrat.
right. Okay. It's interesting that since being part of New America Medias, I have the opportunities to visit a lot of different communities and talk with many different ethnic medias around the country, even. And there is such an interlink between what's happening back in the homelands of these communities and the communities right here. So at time, even though places are far away, it's like it's also here. So for example, with the Arab community, I think what's happening in the Middle East, it has always been
Absolutely.
sort of
Absolutely.
affected communities here. And I probably would say that probably more than any other group in judging from the media reportings and judging from how it's actually impacting you, not just indirectly but directly. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on that, because it's very unique that way.
Yes, the point is for Arab American groups in America and their parents or their families in Middle East. The families in Middle East look at the things different way than what we look at the things here. Like for example, freedom fighter, we mentioned that in other program. They used to name people freedom fighter. Now they name them terrorists here.
Right.
But they don't name them terrorists there yet.
Right.
They still have that image, those fighters for their own life. So they accept that idea, and it is against our will here.
Right,
So we are like we split now with ideas also how to protect families here or families there, how to help.
Right.
It is confusion actually.
That's happening in Middle East. It's affect all Arab community over here, because each family in America or any other where in the world, they have a family over there, and everybody, they are scared and they are concerned about their parent, their family, their relative, their neighbor over there. When we moved to United States, not the whole family moved together, just half of the family over there. Still, that's why it's affect. We still, we still call them, they're still calling us, we have a relationship, we go visit, they come visit us. This is why we still attached.
But interestingly, it's not only that way where we are saying that, what's happening, say, in Sri Lanka or India or Pakistan affects us here. It's the other way around also, because I think the expatriates, the diasporas of every country, they are playing increasingly a larger role in their own countries, because by influencing politics here. And that we see with the Indians, because recently, the nuclear bill was passed, and now the Indians are free to buy the Americans are free to supply nuclear needs of India. So, that ban was removed. And all of that comes out of, and the Indians actually play a very large role in the elections here, the politics here, because the very wealthy Indians and Pakistanis, they help the campaigns here. And so here it is that it's not that whatever happens there affects us here, but it's also that diasporas, expatriates are trying to influence politics in their countries.
It's a two-way street.
Going through this, and increasingly expatriates are playing a big role in that, I think.
Perhaps we can go back to that point later, because it's not unusual that many political candidates from homeland come to the U.S. fundraise among their own communities here for the candidate back home. Mexico has done it. I know that many Chinese candidates, political candidates, have done it, and so on. Just to have a broad overview of other top stories in 2006, I would agree with you both that we have this American, the election here in November affected all ethnic communities in some way, either the interest in the foreign policies with the war with Iraq, or also there is a belief that there's also be a change in terms of job opportunities and so on. And also for many of the religious groups, they also believe that there would be a directional change in the way that we have been debating stem cells, we've been debating the abortion issues and so on. And I concur with you that the bombings of the Israeli in Lebanon is also a big story, even though the public would still weed out the Hezbollah. But so many other Middle Eastern countries are also involved, the Iran, Jordan, Syria.
Saudi
mainly-
Arabia.
But
Right.
mainly the Palestinian in South Lebanon get hurt the most.
Right.
We still have Palestinian in South Lebanon. That's why the bombing was on South Lebanon,
Right.
on Palestinian. That means still Palestinian issue in Lebanon.
Right.
Beside.
And we also have the issue of the nuclear proliferations. That is also a link with the Middle East because Iran want
Yeah.
to develop its own nuclear arm capability, as well as you have countries like Pakistan and also India have
Yeah.
already developed that.
Right.
And
they-
also Israel.
Israel the
Don't
Don't
first.
forget Israel.
Yes.
Israel
Yes,
has
exactly.
nuclear weapon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Israel also not for peace,
Uh-huh.
and now they are talking about using it for as war.
Right.
And other people have no right to use it. The way
nuclear
we
That's
Nobody
when
can-
they admit it.
the way we give the rights for people and not the other.
No, take
This
it
is what
further.
it makes people angry. Why this country have the right? Why this country have no right?
Yeah,
Either all
exactly.
have no rights or
Yeah.
all have rights.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the point. Maybe will bother.
Right. And another thing is that the weather. We've had increasingly, we've been talking about global climate change for
Global
years.
warming, yeah.
Disaster.
But
Yeah.
I think it's starting to
Cold.
affect us in a way that we can actually begin to feel it.
Yeah.
Last year and this year we have the heat storm in July,
Yeah.
and right now on the East Coast it's
We have
actually
the
it's
cold.
warmer
Yeah.
Yes.
than on the West Coast. So we've been having climate change in a very irregular way
Right.
that we have not really been. And now who's at the forefront?
Yeah.
Once again, it's ethnic communities.
Yes.
But again, there's a politicizing even of that, isn't it? Of the global warming issue, of whether
Right.
there is or is not global warming is also up in question now, because depending on who you're listening to, some are saying yes, some are saying no. It's again, there's politicizing going on there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I guess the natural disaster coming more and more since tsunami. Until now, we have a
Yeah.
lot of disasters,
Right.
either earthquake or hurricane or snow, or teach us how to connect to each other around the world and
Right.
help each other around the world.
You mentioned tsunami, and I come from a tsunami-affected country, and we had almost 40,000 killed in that
Yeah.
big disaster, and sadly, there are still people living in tents.
Yes.
It's now 2 years on the
Yes.
26th,
Yep.
but when I went back to Sri Lanka earlier this year, I spoke to some of the victims, and believe it or not, there are women who lost their husbands and are now having to fend for themselves, and all that they got was like $150 for their loss. Like if
Yeah.
a price was put on people, $150 for people who were killed. And when you talk about the amount of funds that were raised for tsunami,
Yes.
it's very sad.
Yeah.
It's sad that people have been forgotten.
The same.
Almost,
Yeah.
it's almost forgotten. This
Yeah.
year we never saw any stories about tsunami anymore.
The same story with Katrina, New Orleans.
you
The
can
disaster
see that.
happened,
Yeah.
but still people suffering until now, and not fixed up
Right.
the right way or faster
Yeah.
than it should than we have it now. Still suffering from that natural disaster.
One World Org, promoting cultural understanding through the media.
I could add about some of the story that I think been overlooked. One would be that we have this sort of explosions of people marching down the streets, primarily the Latino, about immigration reform. All of a sudden, America waking up to reportedly about 12 million undocumented immigrants in America,
Yep.
and that. So far, the focus has been on the Latino, but within that number, you have Asians, undocumented
Arab,
immigrants, you have
have
Arab,
Arab.
undocumented. and
There
so
is
on.
almost 20 million.
Right. So some of the thinkers out there thought that okay, that might be sort of an assessment that on the demographic change, because obviously there's been a demographic shift in America. So what does it mean now and into the future? But so far, the focus has been more on the bills that in Congress put out, the House bill, and then the Senate bill, and then when some of the experts compare those two together, actually, there's not much difference between the two, because the bulk of the two bills, and actually we had an attorney that came to the Arab American Press Guild and give a talk. If you look closely, the two bills essentially focus more on the executions, on the law enforcement of that, and come out of that you have a lot of new building of detentions of undocumented immigrants, and you have more wiretapping. The two bills actually giving a lot more power to Homeland Security and also more border patrol, and yet the focus of the two bills has been primarily on, okay, what do we do with these undocumented workers, rather than some of the existing way of controlling population flow into the U.S. So I thought that's been one thing that's been overlooked, and also about what does it mean to America years from now when you have the growth of ethnic populations, and then you have essentially a shrinking populations of the the so-called Caucasian population, the general public. So that's been one. And also another underreported story is that the Congress has quietly passed a law to exempt the Pentagon from the Freedom of Information Act. So if you are going to investigate any story that relates to Homeland Security, and if it's linked with the Pentagon, then your cases will not go very far.
Yeah.
They protect the secret
The secrecy.
news, but this is the main issue here.
Right.
That home
Right.
have the most secrets
Right.
cover or made that things happen around us.
Right.
It has a point from that
Right.
side, so you cannot go further.
Another ongoing issue is the media reform in America. It's been ongoing for some years now, but finally I've gone to a conference earlier this year, and some journalists in the mainstream media finally admitted that an analogy to that would be that it is extremely difficult for a barber to cut his own hair. It is extremely difficult for a surgeon to operate on himself. And that is the situation with the media industry. It has changed so much because of the demographic change. We're seeing a proliferation of ethnic media. At the same time, we're seeing the impact of the internet. More and more people are getting the news from the internet, from YouTube, from MySpace, and from the blogs, rather than the traditional medias, because viewers of the evening news have been declined. Subscriptions for mainstream press being declined. These years, across the countries, the Washington Post, New York Times, Chronicle, virtually all of the major newsrooms have to cut back a lot of the staff, and Google's now making more money on advertising than the New York Times. So this is the year that I would say the mainstream media has finally faced reality that, okay, then what's next? What become of our industries and so on?
Well, if I may comment on that, is that mainstream media, for the most part, ignores a lot of stories that are of importance to ethnic media, to ethnic communities. For example, the Sri Lanka Express, my own little newspaper, our lead story on the December 15th issue was that there are 2 Buddhists and a Muslim in Congress for the first time.
Right.
Now, this story, my readers would not have picked up in the mainstream media, that there are 2 Buddhists for the first time in Congress, and that's a very important step. And how would they be swearing, and all of that was involved. Of course, they picked up on the fact that Keith Ellison was going to swear on the Quran, and the reason of that is, of course, because there is so much of anti-Muslim sentiment all over, and yes, and immediately there was a lot of comment on that. But with the Buddhists, nobody picked that up, because generally Buddhists are a passive community. But who told that to our communities? It's our ethnic media that's informing our communities about what's happening. So increasingly, they are going to depend on us.
Right.
And also, mainstream media often skews stories and slants them in accordance with their agendas, or what they think is this mold that they should be fitting the stories in. But our communities generally know much more than that. And so they want to know stories that are not very slanted.
Stories behind that.
Yeah, so they trust us to tell the story as it is.
Right.
That's our duty,
That's-
actually,
yeah,
as
and-
ethnic
and-
media, ethnic groups,
yeah.
to give the real story behind that.
Yeah, and also there was more in the blogs about the this issue of the Muslim and the Buddhists in Congress than in mainstream media. I picked up a lot on the blogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it is in the mainstream media as Muslim. They are showing that and mentioning that just to let people know that you have to fight back or not to do it. The main issue to show that or to give that information.
You mean about the Quran, swearing on
Yes,
the Quran?
about swearing the Quran in the White House. No, it should be no. That's the way they address the issue now. Listen to that. There is a Muslim, he will swear on Quran. What do you think? And let us know. What do you think? The question. Let us
you're
think.
questioning.
Yeah, they
right.
question
Yeah,
everything just to let people know or feel that you should say no. Just think. So that's the main issue behind the way they address the news now. But they didn't mention the Buddhists.
The Buddhists,
Yeah, they
right?
mentioned just
Exactly.
the Muslims.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe it's human nature that we tend to be more interested in catastrophes and bad news and so on. And so far, what we've talked about tend to be
Money makers.
somewhat of that light. Any positive news for in 2006?
Money makers.
2006, are there good stories? Well, actually, no.
Yeah.
I can't raise because we have still our health issues, health insurance. We still have our immigration problems, education, and so on. And well, I don't know. The good news is, of course, that here we have made this stride into Congress, but nobody seems to be picking it up, like you're saying. That's a good news for us.
Yes.
Right.
Actually, as an Arab, our good news that the Carter book. Carter book, because every single day you see in the news.
He declared the
Yeah,
state
yeah, yeah.
as an apartheid state.
Yeah.
And no, it's for all this year. You could see now the different.
Carter is an eyewitness, and he was a president with a certain time and history, and he is trying to write a part of the history.
Right.
So before
Exactly.
he gone, he
And
put all things in writing in book, which is I admire him.
Right.
It's the fact he have seen and he practiced himself. Nobody told him the story. He was in it.
He was in it, actually.
Yeah.
And also, at the same time, you cannot believe how many an article it's come for Los Angeles Times every single day against him.
Yeah, it's
Against
true.
all Israel in this country, every day they wrote, against Carter about what he wrote. But he wrote the truth. Nobody forced him. No Palestinian or any Arab country forced him or pay him to write this book. He wrote it from himself. That's a good news. That's one of these presidents that now recognize that what's going on in Middle East. He recognized what's going on exactly in Palestine, and he admitted. He admit that Palestinian people have to give them their right. No peace will be in any country in Middle East if Palestinian doesn't give them their right and give them the right to return.
There is another book, the Israeli person who wrote it. I don't remember the name. He wrote, again, like Carter, he was witness, he was knowing what's going on.
Right.
This Israeli person, he couldn't help himself to continue ignoring the fact that he was there early time before Israel established. And he wrote the book about how the Haganah established there and how the invasion or how Israel established. He wrote a book under the name of Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. And it is recently come from London and it is in the market. which is helped me myself to tell the truth from the Israeli side, not me. I was looking forward to, I was little at that time, I don't remember things, to tell the truth. But he is telling what he saw.
Another piece of good news is Rumsfeld is gone.
You know, a lot of, to me, I feel, we talk about Middle East, no democracy, no freedom, but at least they control things, and you know they control things. Here, as last time I mentioned the face, the mask, only our governor has no mask. He is clear, and he is coming from background and from Hollywood, and he is acting clearly. But other people, they're acting like Hollywood, but they don't show it. They are acting. So the clear thing that in America, we have a lot of control on media, from Pentagon or White House. We have a lot of control because the media, mainstream media, have the same stories telling you, and the small stories as all ethnic groups, which American people, they don't care about it. So they focus on issues. Also, why the blog, as you mentioned, why it comes? Because there is no way to put that issues or run those issues in media. So they come from behind the, you know.
That's why I mentioned earlier that
we have a lot of control. We are not free the way it should be as a constitution and things. We don't feel it, but this is what we have.
Well, it's hard to put a definition on the word free, but I would say that we are more free than other places.
Yes.
We are more free than we are in our country, at least, you know.
Yes.
You cannot open your mouth in your country.
You know, there's one good news in 2006 has been the overall performance of the economy. 2006, the economy's done better than 2005. College graduates could find jobs, and in fact, yesterday it depends on your perspective, but Wall Street is one of its biggest gain ever. The chairman of Morgan Stanley got a bonus of 40 millions, and then only several days later, the chairman of Goldman Sachs topped that with more than 50 millions.
Oh, wow.
That's capitalism at its best. So, in a way, I say the economy is doing well.
In a way. But there is more poverty now and more problems now. People have no food.
And so on the other side of the coin, we are seeing
we don't see our salaries going up. But also with the immigration issue not yet resolved, we have many people still in the shadows and working in gas stations and convenience stores at night. Facing a lot of peril. They face a lot of. They put their lives on the line every night by working in those places, and they don't see, they don't even get minimum wage, some of them.
There's no plan.
So they're in the shadows. So what's the point to our communities at large, where there are people who are still marginalized like
About
that?
the minimum wage, actually, there is 2 points that comes to my mind today. We fight or we talk about immigration, and we have to fix up the problem, and there is no plan yet. But I don't think we study the cases all at once, at large, together. We study it pieces, and we fix up this problem, but not all together. For example, how many millions illegal here, but
12 million.
We let them work in our home, in our business as big shots. How many big shots names get hurt because they use people with no legal papers, no documentation. But the point is how much they pay them. Minimum wage. Now, if we give them that right and we made them legally here, I don't think we should pay them less than the minimum wage. Do you think people will hire them after all? I give them the minimum wage, the legal minimum wage? Nobody will accept that. And the economic
we might
change.
Feel an impact on that very shortly with the recent raids of the undocumented workers at the meatpacking factories in the Midwest. And there's already been reporting that we might see a rise in prices in the supermarkets. And so if that might be indications that, okay, if there's more of such raids, then
But increase
it's going to affect the economy in a very big way. And in fact, I remember one political candidate during the gubernatorial debate, Peter Campbell, he made a very good point that, you know, in a way it's like a charade, because immigrant officers, they know where the undocumented workers are. All you have to do is go to a lot of these farms areas where people are picking fruits and crops and so on. All you have to do is go to a lot of these hotels, and if you set up a sting operations, you could round up. I mean, you probably won't have enough of manpowers to round up all these people. So you know where they are already.
The builders also.
And you've been ignoring all these years, and now because of the political pressure points, so that too much of this might hurt us in the long run. So what's been missing is some humane and some reasonable approach to immigration reform, rather than demonizing these undocumented workers and overlook the benefits that they have brought to the U.S. so far. And what's been missing from the discussions is actually the business communities who've been benefited from these low-wage workers, housings, because of the constructions, hotel industries. Basically, it's all of these jobs that American citizens are no longer wanted to do.
Yeah, they're not graduate,
There is one point I would like to mention. United Nations now, they will have a new Secretary General.
Right.
So what do you think about it? How it was with Kofi Annan and how it will be with, I guess,
Kofi
his
Annan
name,
report. It was very interesting, by the way.
You know, my understanding of the ways the UN's been operating is that the General Secretary sort of taking turn. It's region by regions. In the past 2 terms, it's been representative from Africa. Kofi Annan, he's from Ghana. Before him was Boutros Ghali from the Middle East. And before Boutros was Perez from Latin America. So in a way, this time it's an Asian's region's turn.
Maybe it's to have it's going to be different?
A representative. And China cannot assume that position because it's already part of the permanent 5, just like the U.S., France, Britain. They would have the veto power, but you will never see any representative from the major 5 countries. The question is whether he could make any change in the directions. I really don't know, because that has been the premise of virtually every newly elected general secretary, is that I will make a change in the world, how it's been going. I will try to resolve hunger. I will try to resolve the Middle East conflicts and so on. And essentially, it's really come down to the permanent 5. I hope I'm not being cynical, but it's essentially the permanent 5 that's driving the agenda. You could have a very dynamic general secretary and it can have some influence, but it's always hard to say. People were thinking that, okay, now with Kofi Annan in position, Africa would be on the agenda. And what we have seen in his last 2 terms is that he did try, but Africa has never been on the agenda of the UN, of the world to solve, despite Rwanda, despite Darfur. And I have to say that if there's any country that could actually have any impact on Africa, that would be China, and also to some extent India, for 2 reasons. One is, already in the continent of Africa, you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are actually Indians, of Indian descent, of Chinese descent, who are the merchants. And also, Africa is an ideal place for products produced by China and India, where it's a lot more affordable for these countries. And for China and India to gravitate to Africa, a place for resources, because as growing economies, they would need a lot of energy, they would need a lot of materials.
Yeah.
And America has becoming more and more distant with Africa. So I think in terms of affecting Africa, it will become from these two emerging economic
It
powers,
has political
China
side
and
again with
India.
voting and things.
It
has
is
political
coming
side, yeah.
from China. China has made a lot of loans to African nations. And the terms, of course, are not disclosed for the most part, but China is playing a very big role now in the economy. And I would think India is going to be a very big role player, not in the world over. It's becoming a very big power, and definitely in Africa. And you're right. I would, and that's what I've been seeing too and reading, is that these two. But then now you're saying that about the U.S. But then isn't Sub-Sahara the oil situation there? Don't you think that the U.S. is gravitating closer?
We have been having close relationship with countries like Nigeria and other African countries with oil, but that is to the extent we are buyers of resources from these countries. But in terms of real development work in these countries to help these countries foster economically rather than just responding to crisis in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in Darfur, in Rwanda. In the case of Rwanda, that was a tragedy. There's been so much alert, but then we never really acted on it.
And why do you think that is? Well, why do you think that is? Is it because by and large the U.S., the American population is not interested, does not want to be in that region, is it? I
think because of that disconnect.
Politics.
And also because of politics. There is a, it's not a disconnect with the Middle East because of our involvement of the energy, and also we have a huge Israeli communities here in the U.S. as well as a huge Arab communities here. So that the link is much stronger. Whereas the African population from Africa here in the U.S. is still, relatively small. And also Africans, although we have a lot of African Americans here, but African Americans who have been here since the early days of the founding of America, which is very different from African immigrants from Africa. So back to the question whether the newly elected UN secretary what kind of direction he would shape of the UN. I would say that probably not the nuclear proliferations should also be there, and resolving the conflict between North and South Korea, which is not just an interest of these two countries but of the world as well because of the impact regionally in East Asia. But beyond that, I don't know.
But they've been talking a lot about UN reform. You think he's going to undertake that?
Also we have the one top story. It was the election in Venezuela and Chavez winning the election. It was very important for the Arab community.
Because he supports.
Because he supports Arab.
Right.
Yeah, that's why.
Right. And I'm glad you brought it up because the election in further south of the U.S. in Mexico is also important because increasingly more and more head of states in Latin America becoming more left-wing. And left-wing, more liberal. I would say more liberal. To some extent, people would say left-wing even. But so when you have a country right next door to the U.S., if it's also gone that way with Mr. Obrador, then there is a real concern to the U.S. here. And therefore, it was more of an interest to have Mr. Calderon to win. And he, in fact, sort of did win. And that eased a lot of tension here in the U.S. And then Mr. Castro being there as well. So. We can go around real quick about our forecast. Like I would say that still immigration reform debate been put on the back burner, but when the presidential campaign start, it will be back again because it has not been passed.
Yes, yes. What about the election 2008?
And then 2008.
Should we work hard for that?
Yeah.
To let the ethnic groups working for voting or doing better?
I have a feeling that there will be more independent candidates in the years to come, because I think the distinction, although we so welcome the Democrats, that the distinction between them and the Republicans is becoming very narrow in many ways. You know,
that would be a good point for your for your forecast
Mm-hmm.
into 2007.
Yeah. That
What about the Arab American community?
Actually, I'm not sure yet what the top story is going to be. It depends what's going to happen. You know, I cannot guess, but Republican and Democrat to work together, you know, to get it better and better. That's one of the issues. It will be good for the Arab community. Also, the all ethnic and the all immigrant, all Arab community work together for to go and vote, not just to keep their voting away or just to let their voice heard. You know, that's. And maybe the top story, it will be soon to hear and to see if the what's going to happen in Lebanon, and if it's the government over there is going to the street, they're going to impeach the government or not. That's the most top story everybody watching right now, because they've been in the street for over 25 days, and everybody waiting and wait to see what's going to happen in Lebanon. You know.
The problem that we cannot ignore the Middle East.
I cannot
problem.
ignore the Middle East.
No, we cannot.
We cannot at all. We cannot.
Just because it is as United Nations and America, they are the major to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And the whole problems around it's created from that problem. Palestinian-Israeli issue first, and injustice situation with the Palestinian and Israeli. And that's why Palestinian everywhere around the world.
And also it will affect Palestinian in Lebanon. As you know, there is over 300 to 400,000 Palestinians live in campus in South Lebanon. And if it's that issue, yeah, it will affect them, and it will affect their right to return to Palestine. It's too many issues to continuing to each other, you know. That's everybody watching, you know.
Yeah. But wouldn't Iran be a very big issue in the coming months? Because, I mean, whether there's going to be some action against Iran or not would be a major issue, I would think. Additionally, in the United States, I would think that people are watching the Democrats to see, you know, how they are going to play out in the coming year. How is the 110th Congress and then the Senate also going to play out?
It's a big issue. Iran, it's a big issue.
Iran is a big issue, but it's going to, there's something going to happen, I would say, in 2007, would be a very major issue in 2007, if we have to make predictions.
Also, it depends how they play the game with the media, too. Iranian president pushed the two sentence, we'll throw them, they are not exist, that's it.
But you
and the rest of it for media.
I didn't think so. My opinion, it will be, America, it's a very big mess in Iraq. And she cannot open another big mess in Iran or anywhere in the Middle East, you know. And also with the Democrat Party right now in the Congress, I don't think so. Any action it will take against Iran, I believe they will. If you hear or read about the Helmington report last time, they will. They need to have like communicate with Iran and Syria. They want to communicate with Iran and Syria to help them get out of Iraq.
Yeah. My prediction again is that Iran is going to play a very big role. It's going to be a big
hot topic.
The hot topic.
Yeah, hot topic.
You know, whether one way or another.
Right.
And
because of its
influence
in Iraq
and
with the Shiite, because it's being Shiite Muslim state, and also they have a desire to develop nuclear arms. And that is a concern for the regions and also the world.
It's a big concern for Israel, by the way. It's not for if America want it to be a big issue, it will make it a big issue. If you need to keep it as a it's not going to affect America.
Again, you mentioned.
I think any state desire to develop nuclear weapons is a concern to the world, worldwide. Because
but they already has it. You know, Israel already has it. Pakistan already has it.
I understand. But what I
India
meant
already
is
has
any
it.
other states outside of the Middle East would have a concern.
And to be fair, also the Iranian leader, you know, he often portrayed and seen as, you know, being of concern. You know, the way some other things he says. So
Something you mentioned, Sunni and Shia. What happened if Iran as Shia, and Shia now against Sunni, and the power will be with Iran as Shia, meaning not as Muslim, not as Arab,
It's going to affect us.
It is
you know,
problem.
Iran is going to affect
it
us
is a
because
problem. With the mess what we have now between Muslim themselves and Palestinian themselves and Arab themselves.
yeah, even Saudi Arabia is throwing its weight in saying that if the
it will affect everybody.
yes, you know, they're going to
because
help the
if we
Sunnis.
talk about now in Iraq, Sunni and Shia fighting each other, that means Muslims fight each other.
Exactly.
Okay, Iran and as Shia control the Shia, if they have nuclear weapon, for who? For who first?
yeah, it's very hard. You know, it's a
not right at all.
big miss. What's going on? You know, what's going on even in Iran? Iran it has a big hand in Iraq. You know, because she's supporting the Shia.
And in Lebanon too.
And
Exactly.
also in Lebanon, she's supporting Shia in Lebanon also.
So let's hope for better.
Exactly, we have to hope for better. And we wish nobody has non-nuclear weapon, not Iran, not
Yes,
Israel,
we
none
don't
of
need
these
it,
Arab,
hopefully.
it's not Arab, any country in this world, they should not use the non-nuclear weapon because Israel used it in Lebanon in last July.
Let's end our show with nice talk about positive things.
207.
Actually,
How about,
the whole disaster happened, but it happened that it created a lot of generosity and giving, and President Clinton have organization for supporting poverty and people around the world. Also, Hollywood itself goes heavily to have that kind of help around the world. A lot of movie stars now going that way and helping Rwanda or Africa or other places. Maybe it is kind of show off, but at least it has kindness in it. But hopefully 207 will be much better, and at least the page, when we turn this page this year, it has a lot of marks, not nice, but maybe next year will be nicer. But I would like you to send a message for our viewers, each one from your way.
Actually,
your place.
thank you to invite us over here and to give us the chance to talk. And for the 2007, I wish and I hope the whole Middle East country and the whole world have the peace and everybody live in peace and safe. And that's it. This is the only thing I could say, that we love to live in peace everywhere.
Okay.
Yes, if I have a message, I think to all people, all immigrants, all ethnic communities, is that to get more involved in your community, to be more aware of what is happening, because we are living here and we have to play a role here, and we have to go out and vote. We have to prepare our young people for the coming generations. So I think the message is to get more involved in your community.
I would say that we are living in a very exciting time, despite a lot of tragedies around the world, and also a lot of incidents within our own countries in America. But as the world becoming more and more globalized, I think we are seeing more changes in America in the way how we see health, how we see education. It's not there yet, but I think that eventually we would have to start having that reflections, because that's how this country was found, on the diversities of nations from around the world. And I think before it was more Eurocentric, but now it's becoming more just globalized periods. It's no longer just the systems and the value, but all values are
All
coming
value,
together. It's kind of abstract, but I think that we will see more of changes in a positive way, that ethnic community voices as well as leadership would emerge. And the fact that the two leading candidates in 2008 campaigns are a woman and also racially mixed persons is an indications that time has changed. I don't know whether they will be elected, but at least now they are there, and that's a nice reflection.
You can prove it with your event in Washington, D.C. as New America Media.
That's right.
Senator Hillary Clinton was there.
That's right.
What is her message was?
That she recognized the diversities in America and the contributions of the ethnic communities and the immigrant communities. And she acknowledged that. She acknowledged that the country has become globalized and it's times. And it's also natural for her to be there. And it was the first time that we had such a national award programs to recognize the contribution, the stories that the excellent produced by ethnic medias, and the fact that we had not just ethnic media journalists coming together, but also from the mainstream media, NBC, Washington Post, as well as elected officials coming, and so I think that is a sign that we are growing, we are maturing, and we are also changing in a very positive way.
Yes, I agree with you. So after all, with what we have here, that we can tell and we can feel that the whole world is, as we mentioned, globe and a small village, and we cannot ignore any side of the world because we, as American, part of different side of the world, and we still in touch with that side of the world.
Right.
And we, as American, part or maybe the stronger side to look at the whole world and give a hand to help solving problems, especially when we know that part of us here, but the other part in other side of the country.
Right.
So we should realize that how important to put hands together and be united and look forward to help and make the difference for a new page in the history, because today is a present, but tomorrow will be a history. Let's write better history for tomorrow, and we together can do that if we thought about it.
Right.
So on behalf of my guests, I thank you, my viewers, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.